I don't even know who's live. And I'm live. Excellent. I am live for Discrete Math. This is the first official class period. Hopefully, I do see two people in there. Hopefully my email found those of you online. In the classroom here, I have two students who are actually physically here, despite the fact that my roster told me that there would be more, but regardless. Just for the sake of my records, and I'm going to put this note into the chat as well. But I am going to ask that for those of you that are online, just to leave a comment in the live chat. That would be helpful for me. Leave a comment in the live chat for my records. That would be great. Boom. And I'll leave that right there. Just so I know, number one, what do I keep for my records? And number two, who am I actually speaking to? Because there's actually 2 or 3 people online right now, believe it or not. This is insane. Anyway, we'll get this thing going. This is the beginning of the third marking period. Got a brand new roster of kids, a lot of familiar faces. We'll get this thing moving. I'm just trying to see, again, no one's commenting in the chat. I just wanted to kind of see who I was talking to, despite the fact that people are kind of leaving the chat right now. Bubble. I'll remind people of that as we move along. Okay. Now, they're not answering right now, so I'm going to ask you guys. Why'd y'all sign up for Discrete Math? Well, it's interesting because ProbStat and Discrete Math tend to have a bit of overlap in terms of students, just because, there's well, I took a half year ProbStat. What do I take then after that? Discrete Math. Okay, fine. And then the counselor just kind of sets them up for it. It's kind of interesting. It's whatever. Do you even know what Discrete Math is? Ooh, that's fun. I love it. I love it so much. Okay. Discrete Math, depending on what level of schooling you learn it at, could be a number of different things, but I'm going to tell you what I am going to be teaching you in a nutshell. Discrete math is math that has to do with countable things. Countable things. Hi, good morning. Yes, leave a comment in the chat if you haven't already. But it's countable things. For example, I just talked with you guys very briefly about the Baseball Hall of Fame. And there's a finite number of people who vote determining who gets into the Baseball Hall of Fame. And we can address that mathematically. It's discrete math. The opposite of discrete math would be continuous math, but that's not exactly what we're dealing with. Continuous math is more like calculus stuff. The stuff that we are actually going to be learning in this class, in my opinion, is more fun. But of course, I don't know. I don't know how you guys feel about my opinion of math and fun, so we'll kind of figure that out as we go along. So, but yeah, like I said, I see 4 people right there. I see 2 people who have commented so far. If you haven't commented, please make sure that you do for my records. That'd be great. Oh, also, for those of you that are new, obviously you guys already know, but every video that I record on YouTube is automatically uploaded to my school YouTube channel and will be available in a playlist. I will hopefully put in that link for the playlist into the Google Classroom when the time is appropriate. Okay. So I am going to set up a scenario, but first I have a question for all of you. I have a question for you guys. I have a question for you people in the chat. I just really want to know what you think. If there is an election of some sort, doesn't matter what that election is for, but if there is an election, who should win? Could be anything. I just mentioned a Baseball Hall of Fame voting. You know what I'm saying? Wow, that's your answer? Whoever gets the most votes. That's usually what people answer. People don't usually answer that, But people usually answer the person with the most votes. Okay. I'm going to set up a scenario for you. And this scenario that I have to set up has to do with kind of a make-believe situation, but I need y'all to be writing it down. So most of you know this drill already. For those of you that don't, I'm going to need those notebooks out and open. Absolutely. You can even keep it. You want a notebook? Ah. Oh. No, I don't want your notebook. Ah, come on. I got you. Okay. So now, in this scenario that I'm referring to, and just so you guys know, for those of you in the live chat, I can still see your comments. Again, please leave a comment if you haven't for my records. But I can still see your comments simply because I have the thing open on my phone right here. So you can even see it right there. I'll bring it up. There it is. Chapow. So I can see you all right there. Please leave a comment if you haven't already. Zooming out, zooming out. Here we go. Zooming in, zooming in. Here we go. Move that here. I got a new little setup here this year. I'm a little happy about it. Okay. So this is more along the lines of an introduction. This is an introduction to voting methods, and that's actually what I'm going to call it. Intro to voting methods. Today is the 29th, and my marker has seen better days, so I'm going to throw this one out there. Ta-ta! Oh, man, that almost made it. Now, my apologies to those in the chat. Unfortunately, I haven't figured out a better way of dealing with it, but there is a glare in the middle of the screen. I've tried elevating the Chromebook every which way that I can to try and get that glare minimized, but unfortunately, I have not been able to figure out how to get around it. So this is the best case scenario that we have so far. But like I said, I am going to try and work around it to the best of my ability, and we'll kind of go from there. So let's figure out this scenario. Let's say that you are living in Podunk, Nebraska. I don't know what this place is. It's a small town. And in this small town, there are a certain number of people who are going to participate in a vote for town mayor. There are 37 people. Now, the rules are you have to vote for someone within the town. And there are four people who have been nominated to run for mayor. And those four people are Alice, Boris, Chris, and Dave. Now, obviously, you can hopefully see what I'm trying to do there. I'm going to be abbreviating their names, and it's going to be pretty clear what the letter is going to be to abbreviate them. So they run for mayor of a small town. 37 people end up voting. Now, Donovan, you said the statement that I guarantee a lot of people say, who should win an election? The answer that people typically give is, well, whoever got the most votes. Well, let's look at the vote totals. The vote totals, so just straight up, vote totals, and I'm going to abbreviate these people as A, B, C, D, clearly. But the vote totals in this case, well, Alice received 14 votes. Boris received 4 votes. Chris received 11 votes. And Dave received 8 votes. That is the vote total. Let me just make sure that actually adds up correctly. 14, 4, 11, and 8. Yep, 37. 37 people end up voting for mayor of this small town in Podunk, Nebraska. According to the logic that most people would put out there, they would say, look, Alice won. Alice is our mayor. Yeah, if you were voting by that simple logic of, well, whoever has the most votes wins. And there actually is a definition for that. It's called plurality. It's called plurality. I'm going to write that down in a little bit. But there's a little bit of a problem that you don't know about these people in Podunk, Nebraska. There's a little bit of a problem here. First of all, Boris, Chris, Dave. For the people who voted for Boris, Chris, and Dave, it was, 15, but 23. 23 people voted for either Boris, Chris, or Dave. And here's the thing you don't know about them. Those 23 people who voted for Boris, Chris, and Dave, they hate Alice. They hate Alice with every fiber of their being. Those 23 people who voted for either Boris, Chris, or Dave cannot stand Alice and do not want her as their mayor. Well, what ended up happening? Well, they hated Alice so much that they didn't even figure out, well, okay, if we're not going to vote for Alice, who are we going to vote for? They ended up splitting their vote amongst Boris, Chris, and Dave. And because those 23 people split their vote amongst Boris, Chris, and Dave, Alice ended up winning. Huh. Is that fair? No, that's actually the key, though, by the rules. Because, yes, Alice received the most votes. But I didn't say how they were counting the votes. How are they counting the votes? Now, in terms of plurality, whoever gets the most votes, yes, Alice won. Yes, absolutely, Alice won that. This seems like a crazy situation. This seems like, well, come on. In what, bear with me, in what real life scenario would you have something where one candidate is hated so much where the majority of people would vote for other people? How would this even happen where a candidate named Alice is hated so much that the majority of people don't vote for her, but she still ends up winning because the vote is split amongst other people? Could that even happen in real life? If you hate Alice that much? What I just described is exactly what happened in the 2016 Republican primary. Yeah. Who won the 2016 Republican primary? Yeah. And what percentage of the vote did he receive in all of those primaries? Nope. Hold on. Let's go. I gotta pick a state here. Let's go South Carolina primary Republican. Here we go. First of all, look at those 6 candidates right there. Look at those 6 candidates right there. This is 2016. This is the South Carolina primary, okay? South Carolina primary. Trump, Rubio, Cruz, Bush, Kasich, Carson. Now, here's the deal. These are only the people that ended up not registering, but like who got the most top 6 votes or whatever. There are way more candidates. In fact, there were 17 candidates in the Republican primary in 2016. 17. Do you know how many candidates there were for the Democrats in 2020? There were over 21. I know it is, but now watch this. Donald Trump received only 32.5% of the vote. Only that is nowhere near a majority. What's a majority? What percent of the vote do you have to have in order to be a majority? Yeah, 50% plus 1 or whatever. Yeah. That's nowhere near a majority. You want a majority, you got to have 50% or more. But look how this vote was split. It was split 32% for Trump, 22.5 for Rubio, 22.3 for Cruz, 7.8 for Bush, 7.6 for Kasich, 7.2 for Carson. The entire vote was split amongst all these other candidates. Now, look at the delegate count, which is what matters. Because in the Republican primaries, it was winner take all. Whoever got the most votes ended up getting all of the delegates for that particular state. I asked the question before, could there ever be a scenario where one candidate is hated to the point where, what was this, 67.5? 67.5%, two-thirds of the population did not vote for him, yet he still ended up winning. That can happen. And it did happen. It happened time and time again. See, the thing is, every single state, Trump ended up winning between 25 and 40% of the vote. Every state.
That definitely didn't happen this year.
No, I'm talking the primary. Yeah. No, I know. Well, yes, technically there is a 2020 Republican primary, but because he was the incumbent president, it's just a de facto, yeah. But this is not. Now, let me compare this to 2020 with the Democrats. Now, I don't, whatever, people's opinions are, I don't believe that there was somebody who people didn't like as much, but Republican primary, South Carolina. Here we go. Now, like I said, there were over 20 some odd candidates. That's a conversation for another day. I do have opinions, but we'll talk about that another day. Now, this is the South Carolina primary. Now, in this case, you can see Joe Biden didn't have a majority, but he clearly had a lot more support, close to a majority. 50% or more is the majority, but then you see the vote being split amongst the rest of the people. There's two ways to look at this. You can say 49% of the people voted for Biden, or you could think of it as 51% did not vote for him. That's another way of thinking about it. But you said it before. Well, is that fair? Well, it depends on the rules. What did they decide beforehand? Yeah. Plurality wins. And actually in the Democratic primary, they have different rules where they actually end up splitting the delegate vote depending on if you get over a certain percentage. Weird rules. Nothing. They're just colors that were assigned to them. Yeah. They were just colors that were assigned to them. You guys know about the Electoral College, right? You've heard of it. Cool. The huge controversy behind the Electoral College, there's arguments being made on both sides, but people argue that, well, it happened in 2016 and it happened in 2000, where one candidate had more electoral votes and the other candidate had more total votes. And they're like, well, that's not fair. 2016. How is it fair that Hillary Clinton had more votes, but Trump ended up being president? Because of the rules. Like you just said. What were the rules? The rules were whoever had the majority of the electoral vote won. Now, we will be talking a bit more in detail about the Electoral College as time goes on. That's not the purpose of today. The purpose of today is an introduction to this whole thing. Now, I want to go back to that 2016 election, though, just to kind of show you something about voting methods, and then we'll go back to Podunk, Nebraska. Here we go. Look at this right here. Okay. This is the 2016 election, probably the biggest event of your, childhoods, I guess. I don't even know. That's 4 years ago. So how old were you guys? You were like 14? Yeah. So we remember what happens. Electoral vote. which is what they agreed upon, or not that they agreed upon, but that's what's in the law. Trump had more than 270, which is a majority, so he won the presidency, even though Hillary Clinton had what looks like about 3 million more votes. She had 3 million more votes. 3 million more people voted for Hillary Clinton than Donald Trump. Listen very carefully to the following question. How many people did not vote for either one of them? How many people went into the voting booth in 2016 and casted their vote for someone not named Trump or Clinton? No. It depends on how many people vote, because you can see how many people actually voted. 55% of the population voted. Not everybody voted. Yeah. Which is a shame. Like, come on, vote. You're 18, vote. I don't care. Anyway, check this out. 3 million. 3 million people was the difference right there. 3 million people voted for Clinton more than Trump. But if you go to the actual results, boop, here we go. Got it right here. It's a little hard to see. I'm going to keep a little tally over here of this. 4.5 million voted for Gary Johnson. 1.5 million voted for Jill Stein. 750,000 voted for Evan McMullin. And I'll just keep them here by themselves. By themselves, that's 6.75 million people. 6.75 million people voted for just Gary Johnson, Jill Stein, or Evan McMullin in that election. If those 6.75 million people had to choose between Trump and Clinton, we don't know what they would have done. What if they had to choose for Trump or Clinton? Maybe Trump would have won the popular vote. Maybe Clinton would have won the popular vote by 10 million. I don't know. Nobody knows. Because when you go to vote, and this is the big thing for today, when you go to vote, you only cast it for who you want to win and nothing else. I want to introduce to you something called a preference ballot. Which is what the people of Podunk, Nebraska actually did. They voted in what is known as a preference ballot. So here is John Smith. John Smith and his preference ballot. Now, what a preference ballot actually is this. When you go into the voting booth, you don't just cast your vote for who you want to win. You cast your vote for who you want to come in first, second, third, and fourth. So, for example, John Smith casted his vote in the following way. He casted it C, B, D, A. Oh, you can't see it. It's frozen. There it is. Click. John Smith casted his ballot C, B, D, A. He casted it for Chris, Boris, Dave, and then Alice. Now, this has huge implications. This is a system that I wish state elections and primary elections would go to. But unfortunately, it doesn't happen in America. John Smith went in wanting to vote for Chris. John Smith hates Alice so much that he put Alice last on his ballot. Absolutely last. Hates her so much. The reason for the preference ballot is under extreme circumstances. For example, let's say that, when is the presidential election? What month does it typically happen in? November. Let's say, I don't know why, but let's just say that John Smith casted his vote early. I don't know. Maybe there was some kind of circumstance in which he didn't feel safe going into a voting booth, and he received this thing in the mail where he could actually vote and send it in early. I don't know. Maybe there was like some kind of like global pandemic going on, and people just casted their votes early. I don't know. Not that that could ever happen. But John Smith casted his ballot early, and this is the way that he voted. Then, right before the election, Boris drops out of the race. Boris drops out of the race. And Chris drops out of the race. For some reason. I don't know why. Maybe they died. Boris and Chris both drop out of the race. Oh, no. What happens to John Smith's vote? He voted for Chris to win, but now Chris is not even running. That vote's just going to be wasted. Well, it's a good thing we filled out a preference ballot, meaning that if Chris is not one of the candidates anymore, John Smith wants his vote to go to Boris. And if Boris is not the candidate anymore, he wants his vote to go to Dave. The last thing, the absolute last thing that John Smith wants is for his vote to go to Alice. He has to put her on there. It's a preference ballot. There are certain scenarios in which you rank the candidates. You rank them. And under the circumstances of one dropping out or dying, and in other voting systems maybe even being eliminated, your vote could go to your second choice or your third choice. I used to have these arguments with my sisters all the time where it was like my parents were going to take us out to dinner or something like that, and I'm like, I want to go to McDonald's, and like my one sister's like, I want to actually go here, and my sister's like, I want to go here. So we all did a mini vote. But when you do the vote and it's a tie, what do you do? Or if I pick I want to go to Disney World for dinner, and then it's like, no, you're not going to Disney World. Fine. If I can't go to Disney World, then my second choice is, and then you fill in the blank. That's what this is. It's like, if I can't have my first choice, this is my second choice. If I can't have my second choice, this is my third choice. That is what a preference ballot is. Now, how it can help, how it can be beneficial, is with other types of voting systems. So, 37 people filled out a preference ballot. 37 people filled out a preference ballot. Then all of their ballots, all 37 of them, were organized into what is known as a preference schedule. It's just the terminology that they use for it. Here's the preference schedule. And I'll show you how to decipher this thing, because this thing is incredibly helpful. It's a little table, a little chart that I'm going to fill out with the following numbers. And I'm going to ask, obviously, that you fill it in exactly as I have it here. And again, I do apologize for the glare. I'm going to try and help you out as much as possible, you people in the chat. Yes, okay. I have to make sure this works out perfectly for what I want to do. Okay. There we go. Move that up a little bit. Try to get out of the glare. Again, I apologize for those of you in the chat. Right here, these two letters are A and A, if you can't see those in the glare. But this is a preference schedule. And what it does is it takes all 37 ballots, and it organizes them in a very nice way. So, for example, 14 people turned in the following ballot, A, B, C, D. They turned in the following ballot, meaning they wanted Alice first, Boris second, Chris third, and Dave fourth. And you can see that, look, first place votes. 14 people voted for Alice. 23 people split their vote amongst Chris, Dave, and Boris. 10, 8, 4, and 1. That adds up to 23. All of these votes, who did they put last? They all put Alice last because they hate her so much. They were like, no, last choice. I do not want Alice as my mayor of Podunk, Nebraska. Absolutely not. We hate her with 1,000 burning suns. She should just go back to New York and continue real estate. I'm sorry, that's not a real life scenario. That would never happen in real life. Come on. But these are the preference ballots. Now again, if a candidate happens to drop out, then you know what everyone's second choice is. Okay. Let's go to the NBA real quick. Seems like a weird transition. How does the NBA select its MVP? Oh, I'm asking, do you know? Okay. Well, first of all, there is a voting system. Okay, just so you know. The way that the NBA selects its MVP, they actually select a lot of their awards this way, is anybody who is eligible to vote casts a first, second, and third place vote. And if you receive a first place vote, it might be worth like 3 points. And if you receive a second place vote, maybe it's worth 2 points. And if you receive a third place vote, maybe it's worth 1 point. And then after everyone casts their votes, whoever has the highest point total is the MVP. That actually happens, believe it or not. Let me show you. I don't know who won. Who was the MVP of last year's NBA? Let's see. Hold on. 2020 NBA MVP wiki. Oh, Giannis. Is that how you pronounce it? Giannis? Is that how you say it? Wow. Giannis Antetokounmpo? He's from Greece?
Yeah.
Wow.
He's so good.
Oh, he's born in Greece to Nigerian parents. I know the Bucks. I know he's really good. I just didn't know that. I didn't know that's exactly how you pronounce it. That's awesome. Good for him. Now, here's the thing. Hold on. 2020 NBA MVP voting. Will they actually give it to me here? They won't give it all to me. Okay, they won't give it all to me, but they will give me something here. Check this out. This was the voting for the MVP for 2020. Now you can see first and points won. The way that it works is what I just described. If you received a first place vote, you receive a certain number of points. And you can see points won all the way down here. Even to these guys, from James Harden all the way down to Jason Tatum, they received 0 first place votes, but they still received points because they probably got second and third place votes. And then you can see the maximum. The maximum is if you get unanimous first place votes across the board. But clearly, Giannis did not get that. He only got about 85 first place votes, I guess, or something. I don't know. But that's the way the system works. This is called a board account. A board account takes into account, basically, it takes into account what your preference ballot is. Let's go back to our preference ballot for Podunk, Nebraska. Chapow. Come on. Now, the way that I'm going to set this up is like this. and I'm going to draw this kind of off to the side a little bit. There are 4 people running for mayor of Podunk, Nebraska. 4 people. You could assign a first place vote to be worth 4 points. Why 4 points? Because there are 4 candidates. You could do 3. You could do 3, 2, 1, 0, but I'm just going to do 4 because there are 4 candidates. Then you could have a second place vote worth 3 points, a third place vote worth 2 points, and a last place vote worth 1 point. And based on this takes into account people's preferences. Oh, I hate Alice so much. I want to put her last, meaning she will receive last place votes from 23 people. From 23 people, Alice will receive last place votes. Based on this system, we can figure out what is known as a Borda count. Borda count. So, let's actually do that. I'm going to do that on the next page of my notes right here. I'm not going to mess with this preference schedule, so I want to keep it as is. So let's talk about a Borda count. A Borda count in a preference schedule, each vote is worth a certain number of points. Now, the system that I just set up with 4, 3, 2, 1, that is not necessarily what they do for the NBA. I think for the NBA, I think they do like 5, 3, and 1 or some junk like that. I really don't know what the NBA does in terms of how they distribute their point totals. But in a Borda count, you decide beforehand, and that's the key. You have to decide before how you're going to allocate your votes. So for Alice, let's just say first place vote is 4 points. Second is worth 3 points. Third is worth 2 points. And fourth is worth 1 point. So for Alice, and I'll go back to the preference schedule in a moment, but I'm just going to write this out for you. Alice received the following. Look what I just wrote there. Alice received 14 first place votes. And because Alice received 14 first place votes, she got 4 points for every single one of those votes. But she received 23 last place votes. And as a result, each of those last place votes are only worth 1 point. So if we do the calculation for Alice in terms of the number of points that she should win or that she should get, she should be getting 79 points. Okay. Let's talk about Boris. Now, like I said, I'm going to bring back the preference ballot in a moment just so you can see what I'm referring to for Boris. But Boris had the following calculation. I'm going to write it out, and then I'm going to explain why it is what it is. Let me write it out, and then I will explain why. Move that over a little bit. I'm going to clip this up to the side so we can see it a little bit better. Bow. There we go. Now I'll move that down a little. There we go. Good. So unfortunately, it's a little small. This is the preference ballot that I just wrote out before. This is the one that we copied down into our notes earlier. And the reason why Boris has this calculation, if you go across first place votes, Boris received 4 first place votes, just 4. Second place votes, Well, you could see right here, Boris received 14 and 10. So altogether, Boris received 24 second place votes. And you can see the appropriate point total there. Then Boris received 8 and 1 third place votes, which is 9, obviously. So we get to that point total. And then Boris received no last place votes. So I don't even do the calculation for last place votes. Altogether, Boris, I don't even know, I got to do this calculation. Altogether, Boris had 106 points. Good for Boris. Now, I still got to do Chris and Dave real quick, but let's just take a look at Boris real quick, though. Look at this preference schedule. See, with Boris, 24 votes had Boris in second place. 24 votes had Boris in second place. They're saying, if I can't have Alice, I want Boris. Well, if I can't have Chris, I want Boris. And then 4 people are like, no, we want Boris. That's a lot of stinking people. That's a lot of people who have Boris near the top, first or second. Yeah, so I guess that makes sense. All right, let's calculate Chris. For Chris, he had 11 first place votes. He had 8 second place votes. And he had 18 third place votes. He had 18 third place votes. Huh. That's 104. Looks like Boris just edged out Chris in the board account. Finally, let's talk about Dave. Dave had 8 first place votes. Dave had 5 second place votes. Dave had 10 third place votes. And Dave actually had 14 last place votes. Sorry, Dave. Let me zoom in on that a little bit better. Yeah, he had 14 last place votes, so that, and that. Add them all up. Dave got 81. So, board account. If they decided to elect their mayor by board account, Boris is your mayor. Where does Alice end up finishing in the board account? Yeah, sucks to be Alice. Even though she received a plurality of votes, meaning she just received the most first place votes. Yeah, she came in last for the board account. Sucks to be Alice. But that's how they elect their MVP. That's how the NBA selects their MVP. You know what's really cool about NBA MVPs? Every single one of them, with the exception of maybe one, either is or will be in the Hall of Fame. You know which one I'm talking about? That won't be? Derrick Rose. Yeah, he won't be, unfortunately. No, I don't know that for a fact. But Derrick Rose won the MVP when he was like 24 years old, and then his career spattered out. You know? Here, watch. I'll show you. Hold on. Let's go back to MVPs.
He used to be really good too.
Yeah. So like you see everybody in yellow here? Everybody in yellow is already in the Hall of Fame. Okay? Everybody in yellow is already in the Hall of Fame. Dirk Nowitzki, Hall of Famer. LeBron James, Hall of Famer. There's Derrick Rose. Don't know yet. Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Russell Westbrook, James Harden. All of them are going to be in the Hall of Fame.
Even Giannis.
Even Giannis should be. I mean, in the end, he wins a couple of championships, he will definitely be. You know? But I'm just saying, like, Derrick Rose is the only one that won't be. I know. Sorry, that's just a weird rabbit trail. Back to this. So, there are actually going to be 4 major voting systems that I'm going to talk about with you guys over the course of time. There's a lot more than 4, mind you. There's a lot more than 4. But there are 4 major voting systems I'm going to be dealing with. One of them is plurality. Whoever gets the most first place votes wins. One of them is board account, which we just did. And there are 2 more. Just to give you a little bit of a spoiler, check this out. I want to see if you can figure this out. I want to see if you can figure out what I'm about to throw down at you. Check this out. Zooming out, zooming out, zooming out. There we go. Here's the preference schedule that we just did. If we talked plurality, Alice won. When we talked board account, Boris won. I have 2 other main voting systems, which, by the way, make perfect sense. They make perfect sense. They do. Using these numbers. And I'm just telling you, Chris is going to win the 3rd one. And Dave is going to win the 4th one. How's that possible? The whole entire idea of this is I'm introducing you to voting systems. And I'm just basically saying, like, who should win an election? Whoever has the most votes. But that's not entirely fair. Because look at this. Look how many people hated Alice. If 23 people in the town are like, heck no, we do not want her. Mind you, 23 out of 37. That's a lot. That's more than 50%. If more than half the town say no thank you, how is it fair that she's mayor? I don't know. See, in reality, just a little sidetrack. Talk about the Electoral College. People argue for the Electoral College versus the popular vote. Do you guys know the basics of the Electoral College? Okay, here are the basics. Every state is given a certain number of electoral votes. 1 for each senator, which is 2, and 1 for each member of the House of Representatives. So the House of Representatives is based on how many people live in the state. So, like, for example, California has 55 electoral votes because they have 2 senators and 53 representatives in the House. Okay? Every state votes on election day, or mail-in ballot. And whoever wins a plurality, I want to be very clear right there, a plurality of the state wins all of the electoral votes in that particular state. So, for example, pick a state that's not New Jersey. I'll do both. Okay, so 2020, New York. Yeah. If I could do it. President Wiki. There we go. So here's New York, right? Now you can see right here in New York, Biden received 61% of the vote, which is a majority, but he got all of the electoral votes. That's how it works. If you win the vote in the state, you get all of the electoral votes. There's only 2 exceptions to that. It's actually Nebraska and Maine. They actually allot their electoral votes differently, but that's another story. 2020, Wisconsin President Wiki. Here we go. Check this out. This is a good example right here. Biden had 49.5%, and Trump had 48, almost 49%. It's about a 0.5% difference. But electoral votes, all or nothing. That's how the Electoral College works for the most part. Some people don't like it. Some people don't like it because, well, Trump won in 2016, despite the fact that Clinton had more votes. Well, I'm sorry, the system was electoral college. You guys don't. You guys weren't alive for 2000, were you? For 2000, dude, I was 16 years old when the 2000 election rolled around. You want to talk controversy? Way more controversial than what happened this past year, with the exception of riots. Here's what happened in 2000. Look at this. Look at the vote difference here. It's 500,000. Just 500,000 vote difference. Look at the Electoral College. A difference of 5. And he was our president, not Al Gore. Hugely controversial. How was that fair? He received more votes. Well, he received more electoral votes. The reason why that's set up is because what's the only fair way? Well, I got to tell you, there is one fair way. One fair way is if you receive more than 50% of the vote. More than 50%. Neither one did it. Neither one got more than 50% of the vote. So how is it fair that we say that he won? How? You can't, because 48.4 voted for him, 51.6 voted against him. You know what I'm saying? 51.6 voted against him. You can't. Now, Joe Biden did get more than 50% of the vote this past year, I should say. So that does make sense. The way the Electoral College is set up is for the scenario of, well, you need to get a majority of electoral votes, and it's much easier to get a majority of electoral votes. When did you guys take U.S. history? Tenth grade, 11th grade?
US was
Just U.S. history.
11.
Okay.
Either 10th or 11th.
Do you remember the story of John Quincy Adams and Andrew Jackson? Hold on, I'm getting there. There it is. Look at this junk right here. First of all, the turnout, only 27% of eligible voters voted. Only 27% voted. But look at this. John Quincy Adams, you needed 131 electoral votes to win. You needed 131. John Quincy Adams had 84. Andrew Jackson had 99. And the rest were split amongst 2 other candidates. John Quincy Adams only received 31% of the vote. Andrew Jackson got 41% of the vote. The reason why this happened? There was no two-party system. There was no two-party system. And because there was no two-party system, the vote was almost evenly split amongst these 4 candidates. So according to the laws of the land, the House of Representatives decides to vote, and they voted for John Quincy Adams. Andrew Jackson referred to it as the corrupt bargain. It was after this election that Andrew Jackson formed what is known as the Jacksonian Party, which would then evolve into the Democratic Party. It's really interesting, because look, they were part of the same party. Same party, Democratic Republican. Alliance, well, he was a part of the National Republican Party. He was the Jacksonians. It's so messed up. Because that's what happens. If you don't get enough electoral votes, then it goes to the House of Representatives. Voting in this country is really weird. It is. But there is a system in place, and some people don't agree with it. Some people do agree with it. People say, hey, 1 vote, 1 person. Okay, we can have 1 vote, 1 person, but then you're going to have Alice be the mayor of Podunk, Nebraska. When you have 1 vote, 1 person, you end up having a 2016 Republican primary that is split amongst 17 candidates, and the winner ends up being the guy who gets 30% of the vote. That's 1 vote, 1 person. How is that fair? Just saying. Fun fact about the 2016 election. The first primary is actually a caucus in Iowa. 2016 Iowa Republican primary. Boop. Look how many people voted, or how many people were candidates in 2016 Iowa. And you can see, look, Ted Cruz won Iowa. Yeah, with 27% of the vote. Trump had 24, Rubio had 23, and the rest was split amongst all these people. That is messed up. Two things. Number one, see this guy? First of all, Jim Gilmore, major candidate for president in 2016 for the Republican Party, received less votes than other, which is funny. You want something funnier? He received 12 votes, right? 12. Listen to this. This is a fact. There are more people named Jim Gilmore living in Iowa than Jim Gilmore received votes. There are more than 12 people named Jim Gilmore in Iowa, but he only received 12 votes. I know. But this is the real problem. People are like, oh, the Electoral College and the popular vote. No. This is the real problem. How many stinking candidates are there? And then look where it's split. This is how you end up with Alice as the mayor of Podunk, Nebraska. That's how it happens. Because of junk like this. Personally, I like preference ballots. I like the Electoral College. I see a lot of validity in all of it. And my validity is actually mathematical based, not just opinion based. Because I've seen people with their opinions. And I've seen how opinions, how hard is it to change an opinion? You know what I'm saying? Because people have their opinion, and it's not really based in anything concrete. They don't have anything to kind of back up what they believe in. But it's like, oh, that's my opinion. And it's like, okay, people fight wars over opinions. People stop talking to family members over opinions. You gotta have facts. I do. Anyway, for those of you in the chat, if you haven't, you need to put a comment into the live chat so that I have a record. Please, 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 please do that. So far, I've only seen 2 comments. Come on, people. You guys are present too. Good for you. Yeah. But anyway, this is only the intro. I talked about plurality and Borda. I got 2 more systems to talk about, not to mention all of the problems that could happen with them. Oh, I'm so excited. Can you tell I like this class? Anyway, y'all have a good day. And again, you guys in the chat, I'm going to stay on this for a couple minutes. If you have not left a comment in the chat, please do so. Otherwise, what am I to do? So I'm going to leave that open for a moment. I had this comedy bit with a friend of mine that we came up with where I was going to run for mayor of Barnegat.
Okay.
It was really funny, but then the whole punchline is that Barnegat actually doesn't elect the mayor. The people of Barnegat do not elect the mayor. The people of Barnegat, they have a system set up where you vote people into a town council, which is like 10 people. And then those 10 people pick from amongst themselves who's going to be the mayor for the year.
That's crazy.
Did you know that?
Yeah, I think I did actually.
Yeah, that's the town you live in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
All right, guys. All right, I'm going to sign off. I only see the 4 of you right there. So, or I'm sorry, the 3 of you. So, all right. Bye, all.